That is why now all the other patients nobody's actually depends after my it's also not to be. But then when she had she was dieting everything, then I gave her a still she did not do it. But I gave the basically थोड़ा सा calm down after a while, but still she kept. Previously, dissociation. So secondary diagnosis is better than. Diazepam दे रहे हैं injectable आने से बात करवा दो बहुत दरवाजा बंद करके जो भी मिल रहा है उसको पकड़ लिया and then not respond as soon as she takes a tablet everybody else
सर कल सारे पेशेंट में से कोई सोया नहीं, सब परेशान मतलब कभी आपने
other than that, management.
To start. Good morning, everyone. Today I am here to present my seminar on the topic of disorders of thought, and my moderator is Dr. Sumit Mehta sir. Definition: thinking is the process that results in a product called thought, referring to the ideas or arrangement of ideas that result from thinking. Types of thinking: undirected fantasy thinking, that is also known as autistic thinking. The second is imaginative thinking, and third is rational or conceptual thinking. Fantasy thinking: this is of shorter duration and is quite common, has an important function in the way we all carry out our day-to-day activities. For example, the daydream before going to sleep. Fantasy allows a person to escape from or deny reality, or alternatively convert reality into something more tolerable and less requiring of corrective action. Some quite shy, reserved people, when faced with repeated disappointment in life, may compensate by indulging in exercise autistic thinking. Fantasy, usually understood to be the creation of image or ideas which have no external reality. Imaginative thinking: it is similar to the fantasy thinking, but it does not go beyond rational and the possible. There are three components of imaginative thinking. Number one is mental imaginary, the ability to create image-based mental representation of the world. Number second is counterfactual thinking, the capacity to discharge from reality in order to think of events and experience that have not occurred and may never occur. Number third is symbolic representation, the use of concepts or images to represent real world objects or entities. Rational or conceptual thinking: it includes reasoning and problem solving. These are the two key aspects of rational thinking. It is a complex matter to recognize and classify a problem so that the reason can be applied to find a solution. Classification of disorders of thinking. Number one is disorder of stream of thought or progress of thought, disorder of possession of thought, disorder of content of thought, disorder of form of thought. Disorders of stream of thought include disorder of tempo or disorder of continuity of thinking. In disorder of tempo, there is flight of ideas, inhibition or retardation of thinking, circumstantiality. In disorder of continuity of thinking, there is perseveration or thought blocking. Flight of ideas: thoughts follow each other. In flight of ideas, thoughts follows each other rapidly with no general direction of thinking. The connection between successive thoughts appear to be due to factors which, however, can usually be understood. Goal is not maintained for long time. Determining tendency is weakened, but association is still formed normally. Example: when a manic patient who was asked where she lived and she replied Birmingham, king standing, see the king, he is standing, king, king, sing, sing, bird on the wing, 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 on the bird, turd, turd. It is typical. Flight of ideas typical of mania and can also be seen in excited state of schizophrenia and other organic states. Proxility: it is a type of ordered flight of ideas in which, despite of many irrelevances, the patient is able to return the task in hand. Speed of emergence of thought is not as fast as in flight of ideas, and associations are not so marked. This is a marginal variety of flight of ideas, and it is seen in case of hypomania. Inhibition or retardation of thinking: train of thought is slowed down, and the number of ideas and mental images that present themselves is also decreased. This is experienced as difficulty in making decision, lack of concentration, and lack of clarity of thinking. There is diminution of the active attention so that events are poorly registered. This leads to patient complaining of loss of memory and to the overvalued or delusional idea that he is going out of his mind. It is dementia. In dementia is a mistaken diagnosis, and in depression there is anxious preoccupations. It is a rare condition seen in case of manic stupor. Circumstantiality: There is slow stream of thought. Thinking proceeds slowly with many unnecessary trivial details, but finally the point is reached. The goal of thought is never completely lost, and thinking proceeds towards it by an intricate and devious path. This disorder has been explained as the result of weakness of judgment and egocentricity. It occurs in cases of epileptic patients, learning disability, and obsessional personality traits. Disorder of continuity of thinking, perseveration, it is the disturbance of the flow of thinking. It occurs when mental operations persist beyond the point at which they are relevant and thus prevent progress of thinking. It may be mainly verbal or ideational, common in generalized and localized brain disorders. Example, a patient was asked the name of the previous prime minister. He replied Manmohan Singh. Being asked the name of the present prime minister, he replied Manmohan Singh. And upon asking where do you live, he replied Manmohan Singh. Types of perseveration. There are three types of perseveration. Number one is compulsive repetition. The act is repeated unless the patient receives another instruction. Impairment of switching. Repetition continues after the patient has been given a new task, and in ideational perseveration, patient repeats words and phrases during reply to a question. Thought blocking. Sudden arrest of train of thought, leaving a blank. An entirely new thought then may begin. Blocking should be judged to be present if a person voluntarily describes losing his thought or indicating that on questioning. It is almost diagnostic of schizophrenia. Exhausted and anxious patient may easily lose the thread of conversation and may appear to block. Disorders of the possession of thought, obsessions and compulsion. Obsession when someone cannot get rid of a content of consciousness, although when it occurs, he realizes that it is senseless. The thought is dominating and persisting without cause. It appears against the will of the patient, resisted by the patient. It causes anxiety and guilt. In majority, it is senseless and absurdity. Thoughts are repugnant to the individual. Prudish person is tormented by sexual thought. Religious person by blasphemous thought. The timid person by thoughts of torture and murder. The commonest themes are the dirt and the contamination and aggression, and the least common are the religious and the sexual. Compulsions are in fact merely obsessional motor acts. They may result from an obsession impulse, image, or thought. For example, that the obsessional fear of contamination leads to compulsive washing. Obsession images are vivid images which occupy the patient's mind. Obsessional impulses may be impulses to touch, count, or arrange objects, or impulse to commit antisocial acts. Obsession occurs in organic states, depression, schizophrenia, and occasionally in organic states, particularly in post-encephalitic states. Thought alienation. His thoughts are under the control of an outside agency that others are participating in his thinking. There are three types of thought insertion. Thoughts are being inserting into his mind and he recognizes them as being foreign, coming from without. Thought deprivation or thought withdrawal. Thoughts suddenly disappear and are withdrawn from his mind by a foreign influence. Thought broadcasting. Everyone else is thinking in unison with him. Here, the general interpretation is that the boundary between the ego and surrounding world has broken down. These symptoms are diagnostic of schizophrenia. Disorders of the content of thought, delusion. It is defined as a false, unshakable belief which is out of keeping with the patient's social and cultural background. There are two types of delusion, primary delusion and secondary delusion. Primary delusion, the essence of primary delusional experience is that a new meaning arises in connection with some other psychological events. Snyder suggested that these experiences can be reduced to three forms of primary delusion experience. Delusional mood. The patient has the knowledge that there is something going around him which concerns him, but he does not know what it is. The meaning of the delusion mood usually becomes obvious when a sudden delusional idea or delusional perception occurs. Delusional perception. The attribution of a new meaning, usually in the sense of self-reference, to a normally perceived object. The new meaning cannot be understood as arising from the patient's affective state or previous attitudes. Delusional perception is diagnostic of schizophrenia. The most important feature of this symptom is its two-memberedness. There is a link from the perceived object to the subject's perception of this object, and a second link to the new significance of this perception. For example, if the patient says, that they are of royal descent because they remember that the spoon they used as a child had a crown on it. This is really a delusional perception because this is the memory and the delusional significance that is the two-member test. Sudden delusional idea, autonomous delusions. A delusion appears fully formed in the patient's mind. Sudden ideas or brain waves occur in normal and abnormal personality. In depressive patient or grossly abnormal personality, sudden ideas of delusion occur. Secondary delusion can be understood as arising from some other morbid experience. Secondly, due to the depressive moods and hallucination and that of the psychogenic or stress reaction, sensitive personality.
Describing the delusional perception. There is this delusional perception. Delusional perception.
Yes.
And the next is
Sudden delusional
perception. Yes. Delusional, like you said, describe the word. Delusional perception. ये क्या है? This rememberness.
Sir, two-memberedness, sir, there is a link from the perceived, sir, जो object perceived कर रहा है सर subject, उसके बीच में और सर जो अपने सर माइंड में उनको perceive हो रहा है उसके बीच में सर connection है. तो सर फॉर एग्जांपल कि कोई पेशेंट है सर वो सोच रहा है कि वो रॉयल डिसेंट का है, तो सर क्योंकि सर चाइल्डहुड में सर उसको स्पून से फीड करते थे सर जिसमें क्राउन है, तो सर वो उसका परसेप्शन है क्योंकि सर वो मेमोरी है, लेकिन सर डिल्यूजन है कि वो रॉयल डिसेंट का है, तो सर वो डिल्यूजन है. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
I thought that we already explained vision memory to
primary delusion. Okay, now what's primary delusion and what is secondary delusion? बताओ, what's primary delusion और secondary delusion?
secondary delusion सर कोई secondary cause की वजह से
जैसे
जैसे सर secondary delusion is a delusion of reference or delusion of persecution. Delusion of reference secondary to what?
I'm very happy and I will it gives a new meaning to some psychological event. Psychological event is I'm happy most it, but I'm giving new meaning to something. I am happy because I have just got powers from the God. First I was happy, then I have learned this. Now what's primary, what's secondary? Morbid experience. Secondary is actually इसमें भी चली गया आ रहा है कि new meaning with some other psychological event. Secondary में जाओ. Secondary right. Secondary delusion है तो status का morbid experience. मतलब abnormal mood state से अलग है. So what is delusion perception now? Primary delusion. तो इससे पहले कोई morbid state नहीं थी. अभी मेरे को इनमें start हो रही है, right? I have a true perception. मैंने actually में कोई चीज देखी या कोई चीज फील की या कोई चीज सुनी और मैंने उसको delusional meaning दे दिया. पहले true perception होनी थी. तो सही में मेरे को पांचों सेंसेस में से किसी एक में या दो में कुछ परसीव हुआ और मैंने उसको अब कोई नया delusional meaning दे दिया जिसमें delusion डेवलप हो गया. And third important it has to be self preference. तो न्यू मीनिंग देना है वो सेल्फ प्रेफरेंस में ही देना है. मतलब एनी एग्जांपल मैंने ये चीज अभी देखी और मैंने अभी डिलीजन डेवलप कर ली. मैंने अभी डिलीजन डेवलप कर ली. आई एम द प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडिया. सो दिस इज ग्रैंडियोसिटी बट इट्स अ सिंपल परसेप्शन. इसमें डिलीजन मेमोरी इन्वॉल्व नहीं है क्योंकि मैंने ये अभी देखी. ठीक है, तो डिलीजन मेमोरी इन्वॉल्व नहीं है. अगर मैं ये कहूं कि फॉर से आई एम द किंग ऑफ फ्रांस बिकॉज़ आई हैव बीन टू आईफिल टावर. आई हैव बीन टू आईफिल टावर. मैंने आईफिल टावर देखा है. ठीक है, तो लेकिन मैंने पहले देखा था. मेरी वो परसेप्शन मेमोरी में है. मेरे को याद है कि मैं गया था 4 साल पहले 5 साल पहले. लेकिन अब मैं सोच रहा हूँ आज से, अभी तक मेरे को बीमारी नहीं थी, आज से मैं सोच रहा हूँ मैं किंग ऑफ फ्रांस हूँ क्योंकि मैंने आईफिल टावर पे चला है. So that's a delusional perception involving delusional memory. ठीक है, doubt है, but all of these have to be primary in self-reference. Now what is delusional? Would have been also delusional. So it's a proof that not always. Sudden delusional idea means memory will be false, and delusional perception में memory will be true. क्योंकि delusional perception में true memory होनी जरूरी है. True perception होना जरूरी है.
Two-memberedness हो गया. Either perception and delusion, they are two different things, and that perception has to be true. It has to be there.
Clear है?
Yes, sir.
I was there against presentation. I was trying to raise whether it is a delusional perception or not. लेकिन तुम लोगों ने तब तक ऐसा बोल दिया कि turned out it was not a delusional perception. Answer was the first round. हाँ, तो वो delusional perception पे मैं कभी पूरा मेंबर कर पूरा presentation पे discussion नहीं हुआ, but I did it like my delusional perception तो नहीं है. वो पूजा हुई थी या नहीं हुई थी, अगर वो पूजा हुई थी, ठीक है, वाला अब उसको मीनिंग दिया, लेकिन मॉड्यूलर परसेप्शन नहीं है, वो प्राइमरी मतलब उसको ऑलरेडी आइडियल पार्टिकुलर वेल हो चुके थे जब अल्फा कंट्रोल था, ठीक है, तो वो प्राइमरी नहीं है, तो मॉड्यूलर परसेप्शन नहीं है, उसको लिए एक अनदर टर्म नहीं है, डी भी वहां पे, बट थर्ड टर्म इसके नेक्स्ट लाइन में है can be duplicated in this type of that's
Yes. It's secure.
इसमें ये है, सिंपल कुछ नहीं है, सिंपल है, लेकिन हम सेंस वालों को बाद में पढ़ देना, एवरीथिंग इज इन दिस वन, can be टाइम में चीजें सकता है, उससे जब उसको डिवीजन करेंगे उस टाइम तक उसको इंग्लिश नहीं होगा।
Secondary delusions can be understood as arising from some other morbid experience. Secondary due to depressive moods and hallucination and that of psychogenic or stress reactions. It is also seen in sensitive personality. Delusions are also divided into systematized and non-systematized. In completely systematized delusion, there is one basic delusion and the remainder of the systems is logically built on this error.
Is the name
अभी कितना बचा है?
So total से 53 slides.
आप on this page पे, so 32. I think we can complete this. Yes. Again, maybe revisit it, है ना? At some points, because we can't get, these are basic things, and it will be like this is one of the must know areas. Like all the residents must know. Okay, if
the
you
only failure in answering this can affect your family process. Some things we are facing this. Basic you must know which can teach us to know. Very examples.
so this is a must know area that all of the residents have to know this. You can't get any repeat for that for not knowing. So I think that ठीक है, we can carry on and we'll see. Revisit it.
So two parts में
Any part of the matter very content का हम करके भी content बोला तो क्या content factory या इसके बाद फल को तो रहेगा
कंटेंट हाँ कंटेंट कर लो उसका ठीक है
So
moderator for this. Did he meet you with this?
I just got to know yesterday that I'm a moderator. I said how to see the
See, because there is lot of information that is built in fish. Okay, where even one line you can spend one whole seminar on one paragraph, and then there are other things that are like everything they thought was important, but now with the reference, other things have become less relevant. So only somebody who's trained or whose experience can tell you which part is very important. You need to go in depth, and which you can just tell the definition. But that you need. So that is why you are caught up, because you read everything the same height. Some parts in your fish are very important.
This parts actually literal meaning.
Yes.
Those the previous parts, those were
Yes.
actually ones who have, which you need to build concept of.
The content to entire different.
Literal meaning.
But somebody you should. और किसी पूछा
कंटेंट के किसी पार्ट में कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है
आपने किसी से पूछा पहले प्रेजेंटेशन that is why, because information is there, but which is important, where you need to cover, maybe take more information from the case conferences or from the cases that are present. So while you're presenting this seminar, if you build in some recent examples, which other people have also seen, like the Prayesh was saying,
Yes.
that will then clear it up. Okay. You have a follow-up?
So delusion of persecution. It is the most common delusion overall. Most common delusion in schizophrenia. Schizophrenia. Patient says people are planning to plot against him to cause harm to his family or his property. So delusion of reference. Person feels that things, acts, events, or talk around him are related to him or her. For example, if two people are talking to each other, then the patient says that they are talking about him or her. Delusion of love. Patient believes that someone from a higher socioeconomic class is in love with him or her. It is also known as erotomania or fantasy lover syndrome. Delusion of infidelity. Patient believes that his or her partner is unfaithful to him or her. Patient says, my wife is cheating on me. Delusion of grandeur. There is feeling of superiority, maybe in wealth, power, or position. Patient feels like he is the most powerful person and may treat him or herself like God. It is mainly seen in case of mania. Delusions of guilt. There is a feeling of inferiority. Patient blames him or herself for everything bad happening around him or her. They always have a feeling of guilt, and it is mainly seen in case of depression. Nihilistic delusions. Patient may deny the existence of their body, their mind, or the world in general. Patient will say things have ended, earth have stopped rotating. It is usually seen in case of severe depression. Delusion of misidentification. Capgras syndrome. The patient believes that a familiar person has been replaced by a similar looking stranger. The patient may fight with a familiar person. Fregoli syndrome. Patient believes that a familiar person is changing his physical appearance and disguising himself as a stranger. Syndrome of subjective doubles. Patient believes that he has many doubles or who are living in their separate lives. Syndrome of intermetamorphosis. Patient believes that people can undergo changes in both physical and psychological identity and become an entirely different person. सर कैप्रास सिंड्रोम का सर एक एग्जांपल सर आपका एक पेशेंट था सर स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया का, तो सर वो उसको ऐसा लगता था कि जब भी उनकी वाइफ जो है हैंड जेस्चर करती है तो वो ऐसा फील करता है कि वो उसकी वाइफ नहीं है, कोई और है.
Psychologically, right नहीं है, physically right.
Misidentification है, like specific perception you are saying when she's washing good, what washing up?
Hand gestures.
Gesture. She's gesturing that saying that she is not good. So
Yes.
the interpretation is when specifically doing.
Yes.
gesture.
Yes. Sir.
So what will they do? So you have to go into careful what you have to say.
Yes, sir. Disorders of the form of
See, I
thinking.
think time भी हो रहा है.
Yes, sir.
Time 25. So today, so here, not all the parts, but some parts, I think, especially the important.
If you're clear of all the parts, tell me types of thinking. What's the difference between each of them? Fantasy thinking, imaginary thinking, conceptual thinking.
Yes, sir. Sir, fantasy thinking was also known as autistic thinking. Sir, it is the most common thinking, sir, overall. And sir, usually, sir, when there is any stress situation, a sensitive person usually develops a fantasy thinking, sir. Sir, conceptual or rational thinking, sir, is sir logical thinking. Yes, sir, logic. Is what I think.
So it starts with a complicated solution.
Yes, sir.
Fantasy thinking, clear है?
If somebody is traveling in a bus, just out there, mind moving here and there, like there is no just going here and there.
There are many thoughts which are coming in our mind, but they don't have any purpose. They may be related to our memories, may be related to our perceptions, may be related to our sensations, may be related, maybe completely not related to them, but it's going where they are not doing anything more for them. Why it's called what is it? So childhood thinking is primarily fantasy. Rest of it is not only as well, it might have been something. And what is imaginary something? All of us are doing this imaginary. It's not solving the problem. But our thinking is focused. What they think, what I'm supposed to say next. Okay, you might have been thinking what the point might have. You might have been thinking what you are presenting. The visual perception, they're perceiving this, they're reading you, they're seeing slides, then the thoughts are coming regarding this. Imaginary. They're further three times your life in that.
Yes.
देखा कौन सा फैक्टर
Yes.
तो वो जो है कि मतलब ऐसा क्वेश्चन आया तो मैं क्या बोलूंगा दैट्स व्हाट अ क्वेश्चन
Yes.
अब अभी हो रही है तो कुछ की का एक्चुअली मतलब कोई प्रॉब्लम है मैं आगे
Even experienced people, they come back and there is a lot of discussion on always. But the thing is that you should know something okay, specifically those criteria where the diagnosis hinges upon. Okay. So whether it is mentally imaginary or counterfactual thinking, if you're not that much clear, I think accept a diagnosis. But delusion, hallucinations, visual perception, these can alter diagnosis. Okay. So that you have to be very much specific here.
try to ideas because go back try to ideas here what is determining tendency and what are associations
So yeah,
Yes.
इसमें diagram
what are associations and as per class
Yes.
diagram दिया हुआ है. So मेरे क्वेश्चन में मैंने ये वाला प्रेजेंट किया था. वो diagram दिखाना जरूरी है. Diagram बहुत ही अच्छे तरीके से दिया हुआ है. You can explain that rather than writing this. Showing diagram. Development tendency कैसे होता है? कितने परसेंटेज किस फॉर्मेट में करते हैं? किस फॉर्मेट में करते हैं? Yes, बताओ.
so why this is kind of idea why is this kind of idea what is the particular feature in this sentence that makes it a probable kind of idea अब तो फिर तो मैं नहीं देख सकता हूँ किसी से बोल रहा था what is the particular feature grand expression yes कहाँ है grand yes so next words are decided not by the association but by the tone next line has been decided तीसरी लाइन की tone से not is the content से usually हमारी next line decide होती है हमारे previous line के content से but not in this and it has to be along with increase in the productivity of speech then only note it down you must not you must report it down and then you decide whether it will be separated down क्या क्लासिकल डिफरेंस है प्रोलिक्सिटी में और सर्कमस्टेंशियल प्रोलिक्सिटी में ज्यादा डिफरेंस नहीं है बट दोनों पूछ सकते हैं प्रोलिक्सिटी और फाइटोमेडिसिन क्या पॉलिसी और एक अच्छा सा वर्ड दिया हुआ है वो भी दो वर्ड फैसिनेटिंग हाँ दो वर्ड है
लाइवली
मैनेजमेंट आपको अच्छा लगेगा वो सुन के आपने क्या बोला ऐसे ही करोगे क्या बोल दिया सुनने को समझ गया आपको अच्छा लगेगा सुन के पता होगा और तो कनेक्शन विल बी देयर and what is the difference between circumstantiality and prolixity and actuality circumstantiality prolixity में क्या difference yes that is the term क्या term है elaboration it is elaboration इतना फालतू में elaborate कर रहा है जिसको क्या you will get bored and you will get irritated but the goal is this orders associates are not so much although the climbing जो है वो इतनी अच्छी नहीं हो not as fast but this is the answer why it is a result of egocentricity why circumstantiality is seen in ego with especially egocentricity the person will want to explain similar thing unless he or she fulfills whatever he wants and most of this it is imposing on you the obsession for self-centered or the ego-centered feature again.
So when I asked him his nature, he was like his nature. So whatever I asked him, he said that. So his first answer was not everything because he did not say his nature. So sir, that person, it was not relevant. Even the first answer.
I do personally.
In his perceiving, he feels he may be searching for some sweet conclusion or something that is necessary. So why he is not mentioning his name? Who is that's different. Every person is the same.
Senseless is wouldn't it be equally to the senseless repetition of the same term or phrase without any
So without question also that be present.
like that is that shit. I don't know whether you were saying Danny even after finishing your question he was saying the answer or in between also he was
When I finished my question, then he said.
that it is possible.
And then
एक और इसमें एक और था ये कौन सा है इसमें मतलब अगर हमने जैसे क्वेश्चन क्या बोलते हैं if we ask where do you live he answer something else but it seems that he or she has answered the
Approximate answer. Cancer.
the approximate answer followed by
Precipitation is yes, no, so not.
I remember a case into a reference that the old lady was being trained as a psychologist by this partner, reading therapy. So she actually had perseveration, nothing else. She had. Then we did an MRI and there was so many things. Right. One thing I want to tell our PGs, this in fish actually, Schneider's first vision is given. It says that delusional perception has two types. Memory has two types and perception. Memory is in two types, right? Okay. But in sense, Jasper's perception, Jasper did not divide it like that. Jasper divided it like four types of primary fusion, illusional memory, illusional percept, sub-illusional idea, and mood or illusional intuition. That's it. So there is this slight difference, and what Jasper did in illusional memory, he classified as certain stage. There might be true memories and there might be false memories. That, so that is one thing I was keeping in mind. Both, no, perception can by memory is required. It's a perception. It's a normal perception. Okay. So delusional memory is relating to something distant, not something present. And you should understand one word or two words maybe. Differentiate between primary and secondary. So that two words. More than that, it is written in quotes. Ultimately ununderstandable. That is one word to keep in mind. Secondary delusions are understandable, right? In the background of mood or personality or anything that's come.
I have explained almost everything about all the chapters to you guys along with
Seriously. You should get a form that.
Yes. Let's stop this. Who's next? So what I want is that you people have been given the schedule very in advance. The main reason is that you should like contact your moderator. We are also given as a liberty